Imagine waking up one morning, checking your phone, and reading a headline that completely changes your future in the UK. No more sleepless nights wondering if your visa will be renewed. No more fear of being told to pack your bags and go back. What if I told you that Parliament just made an announcement that every single migrant living in the UK needs to hear right now? Stay right here because what I am about to share with you could be the most important information you will receive this entire year. Welcome back to UK Visa Diary, the channel where we break down everything you need to know about UK immigration, visas, and life as a migrant in Britain. If you're new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell notification, because we drop important updates regularly that could directly impact your life in the UK. And for those of you who have been with us for a while, thank you so much for your continued support. Now, let us get straight into today's big news because this one is genuinely exciting. For months, migrants across the United Kingdom have been living under enormous pressure. Rising visa fees, stricter rules around skilled worker visas, changes to the graduate route, and tightening policies on family visas have made life incredibly stressful for hundreds of thousands of people. Many of you have been writing to us asking questions, sharing your worries, and wondering what the future holds. And honestly, the news has not always been positive. But today is different. Today we are talking about something that actually gives migrants a reason to feel hopeful. Parliament has recently been discussing and debating a series of proposed changes to the UK immigration system that, if passed and implemented, could bring significant relief to many migrant communities. These discussions have taken place in both the House of Commons and the House of Lords, with several MPs and Lords speaking passionately about the need to reform certain aspects of the immigration system that have been causing unnecessary hardship. The tone of the debate has shifted noticeably compared to previous years, and several key announcements have come out of these sessions that we really need to talk about. First, let us talk about what is being proposed around long-term residence. There has been a major push in Parliament to create a clearer and more compassionate pathway for migrants who have lived in the UK for a long time, but have been caught in legal limbo due to changes in immigration rules over the years. Specifically, MPs have been calling for a formal review of cases involving individuals who have been in the UK for 10 years or more, but who have struggled to secure settled status due to technicalities, gaps in documentation, or historic rule changes that affected their eligibility. The proposal on the table would allow such individuals to apply for a form of discretionary leave to remain that takes into account their length of residency, their ties to the community, and their overall contribution to British society. This is not yet law, but the fact that it has received cross-party support is a very encouraging sign. Second, there has been significant discussion around the financial requirements attached to family visas. One of the biggest complaints from migrant communities across the UK has been the minimum income threshold that sponsors must meet in order to bring their family members to the country. This threshold was raised significantly in recent years, and many families have found themselves separated as a result. Parliament is now debating whether these thresholds should be reviewed and potentially reduced or made more flexible, particularly for families in certain regions of the UK where wages are traditionally lower. Some MPs have specifically argued that the current system is discriminatory and punishes working-class families disproportionately. While a final decision has not been made, the fact that this conversation is happening at the highest level of government is genuinely encouraging. Third, and this one is particularly important for students and recent graduates, Parliament has been discussing the possibility of extending or reforming the graduate route visa. You may remember that there were serious proposals earlier in the year to either shorten the graduate route or abolish it altogether. Those proposals faced enormous backlash from universities, student groups, and businesses that rely heavily on international talent. In response to that pressure, several senior MPs have now spoken in favor of not only keeping the graduate route, but potentially strengthening it by adding clearer progression pathways towards skilled worker visas. The argument being made is that the UK needs to retain the talented graduates it spends years training, and making it easier for them to transition into the workforce is simply good for the British economy. Fourth, there has been a notable shift in the conversation around asylum seekers and how their cases are processed. Parliament has heard testimony from a number of legal experts and human rights organizations who have argued that the current backlog of asylum cases is creating a humanitarian crisis. In response, there are proposals being discussed to increase the resources available to the Home Office for processing applications, to introduce independent oversight of decision-making, and to create clearer timelines within which decisions must be made. This would not only benefit asylum seekers who are currently waiting in uncertainty, but would also help reduce the costs associated with housing and supporting people during lengthy application processes. Several MPs from across the political spectrum have spoken in favor of a more efficient and fair asylum system, which is a significant development. Fifth, there is an important conversation happening around the rights of migrants who are already working in the UK on sponsored visas. One of the most significant vulnerabilities for sponsored workers is what happens when their employer either goes out of business or decides to withdraw their sponsorship. Currently, affected workers have a very short window to find a new sponsor before they lose their right to stay in the UK. Parliament is debating whether to extend this grace period and to introduce better protections for workers who find themselves in this situation through no fault of their own. Migrant worker rights groups have been campaigning for this change for years, and it appears that their voices are finally being heard in the halls of Westminster. Now, I want to be completely honest with you, because that is what UK Visa Diary is all about. Not all of these proposals are guaranteed to become law. Parliament debates many things, and not everything that is discussed ends up being implemented. Some of these changes will face opposition, and the political landscape in the UK can shift quickly. What we can say with confidence is that the direction of these conversations represents a meaningful change in tone from what we have seen in recent years. For a long time, the dominant narrative around immigration in British politics was one of restriction and reduction. What we are seeing now is a more nuanced debate that actually acknowledges the contributions of migrants and the need for a system that is both controlled and humane. So, what should you do with this information? First, stay informed. The situation is evolving, and there will likely be further announcements in the coming weeks and months. Make sure you are subscribed to UK Visa Diary so you do not miss any updates as things develop. Second, if any of these proposed changes are directly relevant to your situation, it is worth speaking to a qualified immigration lawyer or advisor who can help you understand how the changes might affect your specific case. Do not rely solely on online information or social media rumors, especially when it comes to something as important as your immigration status. Third, if you have the opportunity to engage with your local MP, whether through a letter, an email, or a constituency surgery, this is actually a great time to make your voice heard. Many of the positive changes we are seeing are a direct result of migrant communities speaking up and sharing their stories with politicians. The UK has always been a country built, in significant part, by the contributions of people who came from elsewhere. The doctors, nurses, engineers, teachers, restaurant owners, delivery drivers, and countless others who came to Britain looking for a better life and ended up making Britain better in the process. Parliament is beginning to acknowledge that reality in a more serious and sustained way, and that is something worth recognizing and celebrating, even as we remain realistic about the work that still needs to be done. We will continue to monitor these developments very closely and bring you updates as soon as new information becomes available. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps us reach more people who need this information. Share it with someone you know who is navigating the UK immigration system, because they need to hear this too. Drop your questions and comments below. We read every single one and we do our best to respond. And once again, thank you so much for being part of the UK Visa Diary family. Until next time, stay informed, stay positive, and remember that your journey matters. We will see you in the next video.